It is the midweek edition of Legal AF. You are on the Midas Touch Network, and you are looking at and listening to Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and Michael Popok. Wow, what a week. And it's still going, Karen, but these are the ones that we curated for our audience that we think at the intersection of law and politics that they need to know the most. We're going to kick it off with Judge Cannon. We always goofed around thinking, well, Donald Trump's not going to actually make her a Supreme Court justice, is he? He's not going to put her as the Attorney General, is he? And now she's on the list. While a case is still pending at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals about whether she should be presiding over a criminal case or not, there is a leak out of the Trump transition team that apparently Boris Epshteyn, who got indicted in Arizona, but is one of the lead people for Donald Trump to pick his lawyers, has put her on the list as number 2 as a choice for Attorney General. And wait till you hear who the other people are who could be working under her or running the FBI if Trump were to win. We're going to talk about it and what should happen at the 11th Circuit. What should the prosecutor do with this new information, if anything? And what should the 11th Circuit do to try to reinstill in Americans their belief in the integrity of our criminal court system? Then we're going to fast forward to another MAGA lawyer takes a major hit, got a new order out by Judge Lyman in New York against Rudy Giuliani, ordering him in 6 more days to turn over virtually everything that he owns, except for 2 things we'll talk about. We're talking dozens of watches, sports memorabilia, money in his bank account, anything that he owns, his apartment in New York, soon to be his apartment in Florida, with one caveat. We'll talk about the Yankee rings that his son claims are his, and he's got to turn them over to Ruby Freeman and Shay. I love the poetic justice of this, who will serve as their own receivers, holding a $150 million or so judgment against Rudy Giuliani for defamation and punitive damages, and a comment that Judge Lyman wrote about the upside down world that Rudy resides in and why he wasn't going to allow Rudy to get away with not turning over all of his assets to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss to pay off the $150 million judgment. And then after we're done talking about how Rudy has wrecked his life and how a measure of justice is being awarded to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, we'll talk about the Georgia Supreme Court in a surprising decision has actually sided with democracy about whether the state election board in Georgia, controlled by Trumpers since September, was going to be allowed to pass 7 new rules to help Donald Trump win and steal that election in Georgia or not. We got a new result from the Georgia Supreme Court. I was shocked by it. And we'll talk about it over with Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and see what everybody here in the chat feels about it. And then lastly, got Elon Musk. There's been a lot of jokes and guffawing over in the MAGA world about him handing out like he's some sort of demented Ed McMahon showing up at your door for the sweepstakes, handing you a giant check for $1 million. But the Department of Justice also sees it as potential crimes because you're not allowed to buy somebody's vote, even if you do it through a lottery system. You're not allowed to run a lottery system, by the way, in that way, nor are you allowed to pay for somebody to be registered or to register to vote. We already had that earlier. So this is what happens when you outsource your entire get out the vote campaign and machine to Elon Musk, who's barely voted in his life, let alone never run a get out the vote campaign before. And we also have new information around this issue that Elon Musk is getting hacked himself, which is great poetic justice. And that's the election interference that we can get behind, because there's new reporting that at least 25 to 30% of people that are being paid by the Trump campaign through Elon Musk to knock on doors aren't knocking on doors. They're sitting in cafes using GPS spoofing software to act like they're knocking on doors and getting paid to do it when they're not really doing that. And I just think it's ironic that the person who considers himself the king of computers and technology just got hacked. So let's bring in Karen.
Hello.
Hello. Tell me about your week. How's your week going?
Week is going great. It couldn't be better. A lot going on. I can't believe there's 2 weeks left before the election, and it just feels like a frenzy of activity going on in this whole election cycle, and it's a nail biter. It's an absolute nail biter, and it's terrifying, actually. And I've been having some pretty serious conversations with people who will say that this election isn't about whether or not you want your taxes higher or lower, or whether the economy, or what your opinion is on immigration, that this is about democracy and about whether or not the rule of law means something. And I think that message is starting to get through to people, because that is what this is about. That is not hyperbolic. And that was really heartening for me to start hearing that from other people, as opposed to the way I usually feel, which is trying to convince people of that. So I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, the other side has scary transgender people, illegal immigrants from Congo living under your bed and trying to molest your children to try to get people to vote. And we've got the Supreme Court is on the ballot for 2 generations. Yeah. Women's right to choose is on the ballot for 2 generations. These are more esoteric issues. It's hard. They're not pocketbook issues. They're not social wedge issues, but they are more important to our constitutional republic than anything that's being run in trickery at the last minute by the Republicans on the other side. I mean, I've got my own sort of personal polling prediction, and people can mark this, put it in a time capsule. We'll reopen it on the 6th or 7th of November when all the votes are sort of lined up and in and states have been declared. I think it's either razor thin and Kamala wins it. This is my own prediction, because I think she's underpolling, despite some discussion in the media who's sort of bored and running out of things to talk about. So they have to create fake news stories like, will black males support Kamala Harris? I mean, yes. Will the gender be the issue? And there'll be a leakage of 1 or 2%. The people just won't vote for Kamala Harris. No. I mean, yes and no. But for me, I think she's underpolling. The strength of the pent-up demand for Democrats and to take out Donald Trump and make sure that Trumpism and MAGA dictatorships and fascism is crushed once and for all in states like Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, I think is being underpolled and not showing up in some of these pollings. I mean, one dirty little secret that isn't talked about much in corporate media is that since the last election till now, we got a whole new group of actors and companies that are handling polling in America. And most of them, the trend to the right. So we got right-wing pollsters handling polling now. Some polling companies got out of the business since 2020 and the debacle that was polling then, and new ones have gotten in, and now it's not balanced. And it's a lot of MAGA and right Republican polling going on, which I don't think is properly picking up her strength. So I think it's either razor thin, sort of what we saw with Biden a little bit with Clinton, but with her on top, or it is, I don't want to say a landslide and jinx it, but I think it's an overwhelming win for her. I don't see a scenario where it's an overwhelming win for him above 270. We just have to hold him back from 270. He naturally has, I don't know, about 230 at the moment, based on the ones we could just put in his column right now, take away the battleground and swing states. And she's got a little bit more than that. But the question is, how do you count to 270? And the scenarios that I see, I mean, if we really just to leave our audience on this politics note, if you live in Georgia and North Carolina and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, if she wins that combination, she will crush MAGA and put us out of their misery forever. If she wins Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, this is not only game over, but this will be a crushing defeat for all things Donald Trump. I'm not trying to put pressure on our followers and listeners in those particular states, but if she pulls that off and runs the table there, which is a scenario that's possible, I think it is. We'll wake up so popping champagne on the 6th of November, right?
Oh, 100%. What concerns me, though, is that regardless of whether the numbers show her winning, and even by a landslide, Trump's never going to accept that, and neither are his MAGA supporters. And so what lengths they will go to, we know already they're going to bring they're going to bring, I should say, meritless legal claims, because they're already doing that and making claims like they did before, that there are dead people voting and illegal immigrants voting and double voting and all of that. So they're going to try to tie it all up. They're going to try to make a lot of mischief. And I'm hoping that the courts are the ones that are, I did a hot take, I think yesterday. I said, not all heroes wear capes. For this election, the heroes are going to be wearing robes, because they're really the only ones who are going to be able to make sure that the checks and balances of our system are in place, given what Donald Trump and all of the rest of the MAGA cronies are trying to do. And thankfully, a lot of judges are doing that. And that's why it's so important that judges are not partisan, that they call balls and strikes, they look at the law, they rule without fear or favor. And it's a perfect segue to our first topic that we're going to talk about, and that's Aileen Cannon, who is a judge who is the opposite of what I just described and what's going on with her.
Well, I like the segue, but why don't if you don't mind, why don't we do Georgia first, right off the heels of that, kind of pick up the steam here about judges doing the right thing before we get to the ones that are promoting themselves to be appointed to some Supreme Court position or Attorney General. So you did a nice hot take on it. I did one recently too about Georgia, where we last left it when we were together at the midweek, is we had two cases at two judges at two different courtrooms inside of the Fulton County Courthouse in Atlanta, Judge Cox and Judge McBurney. Both got cases that were similar about the new rules that the state election board had passed at the last minute in September, when they got the 3 votes majority for MAGA, 7 new votes. The 2 that gets the 7 new rules, the 2 that get the most publicity are hand counting every ballot the night of the election or so, which seems impossible. And the second related to reasonable inquiry into that any related to certification, that any one MAGA county board member could raise to try to delay certification. So rules that delayed the vote counting and rules that delayed the vote certification, and empowering in counties where MAGA was outnumbered, any one MAGA could raise an issue and not agree to certify, which was a monkey wrench that would delay things. And would stop the vote certification and Georgia participating in our national election unless court ordered to do so, and then vote counting. And they came up in different ways to the judge. In McBurney, it came up as a temporary restraining order about the county board and it being forced to use these new rules, which they said they couldn't possibly do. And he had to make a decision on a temporary basis about some of those rules. But at the same time, Judge Cox had a full-blown hearing with evidence and briefing, and he was ready to go to final judgment. So in one day, we reported that Judge McBurney ruled that certain of the rules on a temporary basis, because they were passed so late in the game, would not apply to the upcoming election. And then 2 days later, a judge some people were asking, why do they consolidate them into one case so we didn't have a possibility of conflicting rulings? That's a very good question that got asked, and I don't know the answer to it. But because we could have had one judge issuing one order and one judge saying, no, I think the rules are fine, and then we're up at the Georgia Supreme Court. So then you had Judge Cox, right, who said, why don't you take Cox, what he said about the rules, final judgment order, and then how this got to the Georgia Supreme Court by way of the Republican National Committee and Georgia Republicans, and what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, look, Judge McBurney was basically focusing on the fact that, look, this is going to cause chaos and confusion. This is too close to the election. We haven't had enough time to prepare. We haven't had enough time to hire people and train people, and it's just going to sow chaos. That didn't appear to be the issue that Cox was focusing on. Instead, he was focusing on the fact that these new rules were unsupported by any part of the Georgia's election statutes. And he found that the rules are actually contrary to the election code. He said they're inconsistent with the law. And, he kind of really smacked them down and made a ruling on the merits, as you said, after a trial on these various rules, saying, no, you 3-member MAGA election board people, that's not how you can make these rules. They're inconsistent with the laws that the legislature has passed in Georgia. So no, you can't do that. The way to do that and make different rules is to go to the legislature. And Judge McBurney, because his was in a different posture, his was sort of this temporary, this is like an emergency posture, make a decision quickly. He said, look, it's just too chaotic, too quickly, and it's the opposite of an orderly election. And what happened this week was this emergency application before the Georgia Supreme Court. And as I like to say, the court unanimously issued what I call a 2-word decision, denied. They just denied this. And they basically said, no, we're not going to do these new rules. We are not going to implement these last minute election rules. We are going to just keep it the way it is. And let's just keep going. And that was lovely to see, right? And especially in a state like Georgia, where there's, it can be a conservative state, that again, the rule of law actually matters. And I'm just very happy to see judges doing the right thing and not being partisan.
Yeah, we don't know exactly why that happened. And Georgia's a weird place, right? The Republican governors are generally not MAGA, including Kemp. I don't love everything he's ever done, but he's not MAGA, and he's been on the wrong side of Donald Trump enough that we know that, including in 2020, when Donald Trump was breathing down his neck to hold special sessions of the General Assembly in Georgia to try to get to the bottom of the voter fraud issue, to try to turn the tide and find 11,780 votes. And Donald Trump hasn't relented yet. Every time he's in Georgia, he always finds a way to criticize Kemp. So the people that are on the Supreme Court are appointed by governors that are Republican in Georgia, but not necessarily that unique brand of Republican called MAGA. The last time I can't remember the last time there was a Democrat who was the governor of Georgia. I wonder if we have to go back to Jimmy Carter, who's just turned 100. So I was like, I don't know, this brand of Republican, what are they going to do? But they did the right thing in a very short order. They just said the emergency application for an appeal now to happen without the normal course, which is months of appellate work. It would be like a year, and whether they're even going to take this as a direct appeal. See, the Republicans skipped a step. They skipped one level of appellate court, and they went right to the Georgia Supreme Court. And there's very narrow grounds to skip a step and end up at your highest court in the state like Georgia. And I don't know whether they didn't qualify for it. I looked at their petition briefly before we started recording, and we can't tell from the order, but they did not feel that the emergency was present, nor the need to do it. And I think it's because we're 12 days or 13 days away from the election. Courts that want to do that and monkey around with our justice system, like the United States Supreme Court in 2000, the Florida Supreme Court in 2000, they'll find ways to do, like, briefing over 36 hours and hearings but most courts are like, you know what, we don't really have enough time on the clock here to do this. Now, that doesn't mean that in 2025 they're not going to have to make an ultimate determination whether the state election board, this board that we're talking about, has the power, a 5-person board as delegated by the legislature of Georgia, to change all of these rules about voting or counting, or whether that resides with the state houses. I mean, it is inconsistent with the other fringe theories that MAGA has been promoting, like the independent legislature doctrine, which says that there is no body other than the legislative body that can make decisions about voting and time, place, and manner and other things. And that means ignore our Secretary of State, especially if he's from a different party, ignore our governor, ignore our heads of election, and ignore our election board. So there's going to be this battle here. This is not consistent with some of the fringiest theories that are running around and trying to make their way to the U.S. Supreme Court about the power of these state houses. And so we're going to see what happens. That's I think one of the beauties of the show is that we do follow up and do follow on with stories like this. So let's move on from, when we come back, we'll talk about the thing that we started with at the top of the show, which is this leaked transition memo, sort of a trial balloon about how do you like the criminal court judge that was presiding over Donald Trump being your attorney general? And if you don't like that, what about the criminal the criminal defense lawyer that was Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer in that very proceeding being her deputy general counsel, or the other attorney that's representing the defendants in Mar-a-Lago being a deputy attorney general reporting to the judge who was in the case. If that troubles you, you're going to want to come back when we come back from our break and discuss that, and discuss some things where Elon Musk has gotten into trouble, of course, with the Department of Justice, and what we do about all of that. There's that big giant check that he's doing. And then, frankly, we got to talk about Rudy Giuliani and how he is about to lose, I don't know, $10 million of his $10.5 million estate to Ruby Freeman and Shay, and why that should be a cautionary tale to people in MAGA who are thinking about doing that again, to people who are election workers or others for the 2024 election and beyond. But first, we got to do that thing that pays the bills over on Midas Touch and on Legal AF. There's a number of ways to support us. One, being here supports us. Leaving comments and notes in the chat and in the comment section, reviewing us on wherever you get your podcasts from, like Apple Pod has that section where you can leave comments. But believe me, we do read it for our own constructive criticism and to improve as podcasters and as part of building this network. We do that. And that's the way to do that. And then, of course, we've got other podcasts from people that contribute. As I've said also, not all superheroes have capes. And here we've got a bunch in the Midas universe, including Karen Friedman Agnifilo, who has another great show called Mistrial. There it is. Karen Friedman Agnifilo, Danya Perry, and Kathleen Rice. I'm going to see all three of them this week in New York, which is always a pleasure. And so that's a unique take on law and politics from a former prosecutor angle. And I think you guys will enjoy that show as well. We got a new, we're bursting at the seams with so much information at the intersection of law and politics that Legal AF and Midas Touch got together and said, we need another channel. So we formed one. It's called Legal AF MTN. Well, it's Legal AF, but if you're looking for it on YouTube, right now you can actually plug in Legal AF and it will pull up Legal AF, the new channel. But if you're looking for it formally or telling friends, Legal AF MTN for Midas Touch Network. I'm sort of the chief curator over there, and I put together a great combination of Midas Universe people like Karen Friedman Agnifilo, Dina Dahl, who's doing a show with me called Unprecedented about what else, the United States Supreme Court once a week. And then we got Court Accountability, which is over there doing some great investigative reporting. I just did a bunch of hot takes with Lisa Graves again and Alex Aronson, and they have their own playlist dedicated to what they do to expose corruption at the federal court system up to the United States Supreme Court level. And then we got Shan Wu from Under Color of Law, who's going to be doing new content. And in fact, we got his first one going up, I think, tomorrow. Some new hot takes from Karen Friedman Agnifilo. So free subscribe. We hit 250,000 subscribers in 35 days, over 12 million views of our work over there. And we'd love you to come over and help us build that pro-democracy channel as well. And then we've got, finally, some great pro-democracy sponsors curated by the Midas brothers, and Jordy in particular. We've tried them all. We like them all. And that's why we're talking about them. Watch the commercial. It helps. Okay. It's an opportunity to see us doing commercials. And then if you have the money, and I'm not putting my hand in your pockets, if you have the money, you think the product would be interesting and you listen to our description of it, take a shot. We got you some great promotional discount codes and all sorts of things, usually some sort of version of Legal AF, although listen carefully to what you have to do for each individual sponsor. And we got our first round of sponsors coming up right now. Have you heard about this new bioactive whole food that seems almost too good to be true? It's got thousands upon thousands of 5-star reviews and literally life-changing testimonials from users. Just having witnessed firsthand the birth of my baby daughter this summer, I know that colostrum is the first nutrition we receive in life and contains all of the essential nutrients our bodies need in order to thrive. Armra colostrum is a proprietary concentrate of bovine colostrum that harnesses over 400 living bioactive nutrients that strengthen the barriers of your body and fuel cellular health for thousands of research-backed health benefits. It strengthens immunity, ignites metabolism, fortifies gut health, activates hair growth and skin radiance, powers fitness performance and recovery, and confers powerful anti-aging benefits. Armra colostrum is premium bovine colostrum concentrate, and unlike any other product on the market, it is uniquely optimized for human health, sustainable, and was developed with the highest integrity from start to finish. Armra starts with sustainably sourced colostrum from grass-fed cows from their own co-op of dairy farms in the USA, and they strictly abide by calf-first sourcing, only sourcing the surplus supply of colostrum after calves receive all the nutrients they need. Unlike most colostrums, which use heat pasteurization that depletes nutrient potency, Armra leverages their proprietary cold chain biopotent pasteurization technology, an innovative process that preserves the integrity and bioavailability of hundreds of bioactive nutrients. And Armra Colostrum's unwavering commitment to quality control is evident throughout our entire process. They go above and above industry standards and invest in an expensive auditing and third-party testing and analysis pipeline to ensure Armra Colostrum meets the highest bar of purity and efficacy, which includes being certified glyphosate-free. Armra Colostrum fortifies gut health and ignites metabolism, combats bloating, and you'll feel lighter using it. Probiotics are touted as a gut health solution, but they only address one part of the four-part gut wall, and most products on the market are dead before they even reach your gut. Armra Colostrum naturally fortifies your entire gut wall system, optimizing your microbiome and strengthening the gut wall architecture, which guards against irritants that can trigger symptoms like bloating and constipation. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 15% off your first order. Go to tryarmra.com/legalaf or enter legalaf to get 15% off your first order. That's tryarmra.com/legalaf. What's better than a clean kitchen? A kitchen that doesn't smell. With Lomi, that gross trash smell is gone, and my kitchen feels fresh all the time. Lomi lets me turn my food scraps into dirt with the push of a button. It's a countertop electric composter that takes my waste and transforms it into nutrient-rich dirt in less than 4 hours. I run it while I sleep, just like my dishwasher. No more smelly trash bins, and it's so quiet you barely notice it. Since I got my Lomi, I'm taking out way less garbage. I used to struggle with 3 or 4 full bags of trash every week. Now I'm down to just 1. Just last night after dinner, I tossed all the leftovers into Lomi, hit the button, and by morning, it was dirt instead of a smelly garbage bag. What I love most is how much waste I'm keeping out of landfills. Less trash means less methane. And with Lomi, I'm turning that waste into nutrient-rich dirt that my plants absolutely love. Getting and using my Lomi makes me feel like I am making my household's contribution to saving our planet and helping the environment with just a push of a button. That turns my garbage into, well, Lomi earth that I can easily recycle and use with my plants and in my garden. Lomi is part of a lifestyle for my family and me, as we are focused on leaving as little footprints on the earth, so to speak, as we can in everything we do. And now Lomi lets us get the kitchen and garbage in on the act too. If you're ready to start making a positive environmental impact and make cleanup a breeze, Lomi is exactly what you need. Head over to lomi.com/legalaf and use promo code legalaf to get $50 off your Lomi. That's $50 off when you go to lomi.com/legalaf and use promo code legalaf at checkout. Say goodbye to food waste and hello to a cleaner, greener kitchen with Lomi. And with the holidays coming up, Lomi makes the perfect gift for someone on your shopping list. Ever heard of NAD+? It's in every living cell of your body. It helps keep us young, repairing damage, detoxifying, and giving us energy. But did you know between age 20 and 50, our NAD+ levels are cut in half? No wonder we start having less energy, less vitality, or simply feeling old. So unless you want to feel old and run down, you're going to want to boost your NAD+. And Qualia NAD+ makes it easy. It's a simple supplement, clinically studied to boost your NAD+ levels by an average of 74%. It's vegan, gluten-free, and non-GMO, and packed with ingredients to help naturally boost NAD+ production, to help you feel at your peak and in your prime, way deeper into life. Your future self will thank you. Qualia NAD Plus is a supplement that includes ingredients called NAD Plus precursors that your body can convert into NAD Plus to boost your NAD Plus levels up to 74%. And Qualia NAD Plus has many other holistic ingredients that support all major aspects of NAD Plus production in your body. I want to feel 30 when I'm 58. That's why I'm staying at the cutting edge of aging research and boosting my NAD Plus levels with Qualia NAD Plus. After just a couple of months on Qualia NAD Plus, I'm feeling energy support and vitality return that I haven't felt in years. This stuff's amazing. To boost your NAD Plus levels up to 74%, go to qualialife.com/truth for up to 50% off and use code TRUTH at checkout for an additional 15% off. That's qualialife.com/truth for an extra 15% off your purchase. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode. Talking about truth, we're back. That's all we talk about here. Let's talk about the leak of the presidential transition team memo. Yeah, I don't know if it's really a leak. There's a whole big article about my former boss out there, who's the head of the presidential campaign transition committee, along with Linda McMahon. Yeah, I'm not buying the leak. But apparently, according to reporting, Boris Epstein took over from Michael Cohen as the consigliere who's been indicted in Arizona, who's an unindicted co-conspirator in the DC election interference case, was instrumental in putting together this list of legal principles, and I mean people, not governing norms, who would fill up a Trump set of lawyer positions, from the White House counsel's position all the way through the different attorneys that would head up the different cabinet level and department levels, and of course the apex, the attorney general and deputy attorney generals and things like that. And added after the decision, apparently, by Aileen Cannon to dismiss the 40 felony count indictment of Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago or so. She was added as a candidate for attorney general, apparently number 2. Number 1, maybe Jay Clayton for the Securities and Exchange Commission, although I think he's more likely for the Securities and Exchange Commission again, making her the number 1 candidate. And if it's not her, it's a bunch of other scary, it's like a rogues gallery of ghastly figures who are going to try to suffocate American democracy and the rule of law in the middle of the night and chloroform it if we give them the chance. What did you make from the reporting? What unique things did you pick up that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, it's as we were talking about before about how important it is to have a judge that is completely neutral and has no agenda and has absolutely all the ethics that you want a judge to have. They have to be above all of this. You have to have confidence in the justice system for it to work, right? It's such an important thing. It's nonpartisan. That's why judges aren't allowed to participate in politics. They're not allowed to donate money. That's why if you ever watch the State of the Union, you'll see the Supreme Court justices sit there and they never stand or clap or smile or show any kind of position on, doesn't matter who is speaking, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. And it's because neutrality and justice is blind, right? That's the phrase, that's the saying. It's without fear or favor, and they have to rise above it and be that person. And of course, Aileen Cannon has shown herself to be nothing but a biased person who doesn't follow the law and instead is doing things on behalf of an individual. And it's just the biggest conflict of interest you can imagine. It not only will it impact, obviously, this particular case, but it'll impact so much. It'll impact so much about what they do in prosecutions going forward, or pardons, right? Or dismissals going forward, and those recommendations and what happens. And I just think, I have a lot of friends, obviously, who either used to work for the Department of Justice or who currently work for the Department of Justice, whether it's the individual U.S. attorney's offices or Main Justice. And I just can't imagine these individuals are the smartest, best most ethical, incredible lawyers, right? Like they only hire kind of the best of the best of the best. They're not a bunch of Jeffrey Clarks who really don't seem to fit that mold. And so I can't imagine them working for someone like her. And so it just really terrifies me about the state of our legal system and our justice system. You know, the Department of Justice does so much good work. In addition, you know, they have both a civil division and a criminal division, and they really bring cases to make sure that the rule of law is upheld, and whether it's civil or criminal. I just can't imagine someone like her at the helm and what would happen, and whether there'd be a mass exodus, or whether there would just be people doing things that are not kind of in line with what someone like her would want. So, you know, it was very disheartening, but not surprising to see the people on the list, that it was the Jeffrey Clarks, right? The guy, remember the guy that was supposed to be, that Trump tried to install as the acting attorney general after he lost the election, but before he, in those few weeks before he unpeacefully handed over the office, and so he's on the list. And as you said, there's other individuals who are just terrifying who are on the list, and they're in bed with Clarence Thomas and Ginny Thomas, and the lawyers, as you said, Todd Blanche and all the other individuals. Like, it's just all it's a who's who of all the people who have really just been loyal to Trump and who serve Trump as opposed to serve justice. I'll never forget Preet Bharara, who was the United States Attorney for the Southern District, who works for the Attorney General, right? Like, so the U.S. attorneys report to the Attorney General, and one of the problems he had with Trump, because he was the Attorney General under Barack Obama, and he was one of the United States attorneys that was on the list to remain, because he was very respected and very good when Trump took office, which is not usual. Usually the new president installs their own people. And one of the stories that Preet Bharara talks about publicly, and I've heard him talk about, is how Trump wanted Preet to be loyal to Trump. And Preet said, I don't want to speak to you directly on the phone even. Like, I'm not loyal to a person. I'm loyal to the United States Constitution. But that's what Trump wanted out of somebody, and that's what he expects. And that's not the role of an attorney general or a judge or anyone who has any business in the justice system. And so it's a little terrifying that this is the direction that Trump is taking us in. And look, he's been so open and outward, kind of talking about how they're going to essentially weaponize the justice system against his political enemies and against the media. And the only person who would do that on behalf of Donald Trump would be someone like this. And that was, it's scary. It's scary what is at stake at this election.
Yeah, and you picture this ghastly scene. You got Attorney General Aileen Cannon, who is barely qualified to be a federal judge, with little or no trial experience. She's only been a judge for the last 3 or 4 years, half of it during COVID. She's not qualified. Her only qualification is she's willing to do the bidding of Donald Trump, her patron. Picture this scene. He wins. Somehow she gets confirmed, and that's not a foregone conclusion. She has to go through a Senate confirmation process, as do all the cabinet members that he would be appointing, directors of the FBI and all of that. And if the Democrats take the Senate or hold the Senate, that would be, I think, rocky at best. But let's say she somehow gets through that. And now Donald Trump gives her the order to fire Jack Smith, who was just before her as a federal judge, fire Jack Smith as special counsel, which is what he will order her to do. And as soon as if not, because it may take 2 or 3 months to get her confirmed, he'll have somebody else do it, I guess. But if she did it, and then also, she would be involved with the pardon process. And this is a person who just a minute ago was supposedly fair and impartial, justice is blind jurist, presiding over the case in which the person that just made her the attorney general was a criminal defendant in front of her. And it's that sort of stink and odor of that stinks to high heaven that the 11th Circuit's going to have to deal with now, and Jack Smith's going to have to deal with as a prosecutor. 11th Circuit's got to deal with it, because even though the case has been dismissed from her court, it's still subject to possible remand back to her if they reverse, which is likely her decision, first time in our history, finding that the special counsel was improperly delegated authority under the Constitution and improperly funded. And if they have to return it to somebody. They don't try cases at the 11th Circuit. They only are appellate court. And if they find that reversible error and reinstate the indictment against Donald Trump and all the other people, and Kamala Harris wins, let's say in this scenario, or even before that, because we got months until the inauguration, 2 weeks till the election, but many months until January, then the 11th Circuit now, in order to try to protect the integrity of the criminal justice system and people's perception of the fairness of that system, have to do something about a problem named Aileen Cannon. Because if this is true, and nobody's denied it, by the way, since the leak happened, you don't see the Trumpers coming out and saying that, nobody, Aileen Cannon's silent about it. And so the 11th Circuit's got to say, you got to go, Aileen. You just as you were asked by some of the senior judges in your own district not to take this case originally, you got to go, because the appearance of impropriety is overwhelming here. Even if she didn't make the decision to dismiss the indictment in order to curry favor with Donald Trump, it certainly looks to any rational human being like there was that quid pro quo. And so she got to go. So the 11th Circuit can do it on their own. I've said that from the beginning. They have more than enough ammunition, and now with this new information, to do it. The question is, does Jack Smith tee it up for them with a filing? Now, I will tell you that the Southern District of Florida, which is the U.S. Attorney's Office that covers Miami and from Fort Pierce down to Miami, they just took a position in the Ralph case, the guy that was the would-be assassin of Donald Trump, maybe, on the Mar-a-Lago golf course. The guy that had the gun sticking out of the bush, 2 holes ahead of Trump, out of a bush about Trump. The defense, the public defenders representing him, moved to disqualify Aileen Cannon because of what appears to be her close relationship with Donald Trump, especially having just ruled in his favor. But the U.S. Attorney's Office in Southern District, with I'm sure approval by Main Justice in Washington, said, no, we don't think it's appropriate to remove the judge under those circumstances. And so we got to see now what the special counsel is going to do. Does he stay neutral again, or does he drop the gloves and say, you know what, if she's on the short list for the attorney general, then she can't preside over this case any longer. That's a disqualifying event. So we're going to see how that all plays out. What do you think is going to happen with the 11th Circuit and removing Aileen Cannon?
So, it's so tricky because I keep trying to game this out in my head. If Trump wins, right, he kind of wants the 11th Circuit to reverse her, because otherwise if he wins, he's going to have to dismiss the Hunter Biden case that was also brought by a special counsel. He's going to have, which he's not going to want. And so all he has to do is dismiss these cases, right? Whether the 11th Circuit sends it back, if he wins, whether the 11th Circuit sends it back to her or recuses her, it doesn't matter. He's going to order her, if she's the attorney general or whoever his attorney general is, to dismiss these cases and pardon himself and pardon the unindicted co-conspirators in the January 6th case. I mean, and I don't think he actually wants the law to be that special counsels are not properly, that I mean, the whole don't forget, the reason she dismissed the case wasn't because he's innocent, wasn't because he was allowed to hold the documents, wasn't any of that. It was, she found that special counsels aren't valid, right? You're not allowed to do that the law doesn't allow that. And I don't know that Donald Trump actually wants that to be the state of the law. So it's weird to, I don't think he has an ultimate plan. I do think he just is trying to bat things around and game it out so he can ultimately win and just make hay out of all of this. But I think they're going to have to ultimately reverse this case, the 11th Circuit, because of course special counsels, for all the reasons we've talked about over and over again here on the show, and the statutes that we've gone over and the precedent and the history, of course, it is perfectly legitimate to appoint a special counsel. It was legitimate here. There's nothing wrong with appointing a special counsel. In fact, the law actually specifically allows it. And Congress authorized funding for it. I mean, it couldn't be clearer, actually, despite what Clarence Thomas has said to Aileen Cannon and despite what she said. So I think it's clear they're going to reverse it. And I could see them removing her based on her history of just crazy lawless decisions. And as you said, now this just smells bad. And as many courts have held, the appearance of impropriety is just as bad as actual impropriety, because it undermines confidence in the justice system, which we can't do.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I mean, I'm not sure that it automatically leads to the dismissal of other special counsel things, but I think the 11th Circuit's going to have to take a position about it. I think they were already leaning towards reassigning her. I think they will reassign her if they decide to reinstate the indictment in Mar-a-Lago and on their findings. We're going to know more as we continue before the election. Pardon me. But again, it just shows you how important. There's so many things that are on the ballot besides people running for office in November. The Supreme Court is on the ballot. The rule of law is on the ballot. A woman's right to choose is on the ballot. What kind of country we live in is on the ballot. And those things may not fit neatly on a bumper sticker or a T-shirt or in a mean tweet or meme, but they're important. And I know our audience gets it, and they're doing everything they can to help make sure what we're talking about in the future is a Madam President-elect Kamala Harris and her transition team, and not have to go through all of these game strategy and gaming out what could happen if Donald Trump gets back in. And so we're going to pick up with what happened to some of the lawyers that represented Donald Trump the first time around. It's when we come back from our next break, it'll be the F around and find out edition. Who's your daddy edition? I know who's Rudy Giuliani's daddy. It's now Ruby Freeman and Shay, the mother-daughter team, who got horribly doxxed and defamed and punitive damages awarded against them for $148 million. And now they're entitled to collect every last scrap of it from the hide and backside of Rudy Giuliani. And finally, after this is now the third federal judge involved in this process, we now have an order, and we're on the clock with 6 more days. We're going to talk about all of that and what it means for Rudy Giuliani. But we're going to take another break again. How do you support us? For those that are interested, if you're this deep into the podcast, you're interested. So let me tell you how to support us. It's listening to the podcast on audio and watching us on video and going back and forth, leaving comments in both places. Very, very important. Leaving reviews, 5-star reviews, very, very, of course, very, very important. Helping us on the other podcasts like Mistrial and on Legal AF. We've got a Patreon. There's Mistrial, which is on Thursdays. We've got a Patreon for Legal AF called patreon.com/legalaf, where we're doing some unique content over there and opportunities to talk to at least Ben and me on a regular basis on Patreon. And then we've got this new Legal AF YouTube channel, Pro-Democracy, running parallel to Midas Touch in collaboration with Midas Touch. As I joke with people, we're not leaving our brothers. That's our mama and our papa. We're just doing a new channel at the intersection of law and politics, where I'm curating sort of those top stories and new content that you haven't seen before and new voices that you haven't heard from before on a regular basis over on Legal AF MTN. Help us get to 250,000. Actually, we're beyond that now, 300,000 before Halloween. That's my new goal and my new number. And with your help, we'll get there. And then we got these great pro-democracy sponsors who know what we do on this show, who know what our content is, who know what we talk about, and not in spite of, want to be here talking to our audience. And we got another batch coming up right now.
I haven't been this excited by a new sponsor in a long time. Honey Love Shapewear. It looks and feels amazing and makes me feel and look my best. It gives me a little extra help in the areas I need it, and it's so comfortable. I can literally wear it every day. I've tried other shapewear products, and none of them are as comfortable and at the same time as effective as Honey Love. So get support where you need it and not where you don't. It's lightweight, breathable, and looks like lingerie. So with wedding season here, I actually wore my new Honey Love to a wedding, and it was beyond perfect. I don't have to be afraid of tight dresses or any those little lumps and bumps. You know what I'm talking about showing. Plus it lifts you all in the all the places, if you know what I mean. So with Honey Love, you can feel your best even when you're wearing less. They use targeted compression to enhance your curves instead of squeezing them. You'll feel hugged and not suffocated, whether you're a bride, a guest, or looking for an extra confidence in everyday life. Honey Love is your go-to for all things shapewear. Plus, it's the only shapewear that won't ever roll down no matter how much time you spend on the dance floor. Honey Love shapewear features lingerie-inspired design, and there are details that you'll want to show off, and it's made with breathable fabric that keeps you nice and cool. So for a limited time only, you can get Honey Love on sale. Get 20% off your entire order with our exclusive link, honeylove.com/legalaf. Support our show. Check them out at Honey Love. It's honeylove.com/legalaf. Treat yourself to the best bras and shapewear on the market and save 20% off at honeylove.com/legalaf. Thank you so much for supporting our show, Honey Love.
Traditional bed sheets, they can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat. It can lead to acne, allergies, and stuffy noses, and it's just gross. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning, antibacterial bedding, such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacteria growth and require up to 3 times less laundry. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather. So you get better sleep every night. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo, LegalAF, at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf and use the code LegalAF to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/legalaf to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Let's face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. I have to make a choice. I can either have a great night or a great next day. That is until I found ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Now look, I won't lie. I was a bit on the fence about pre-alcohol initially. But then, while hanging out with my fantasy football draft crew over at our favorite Jersey Shore sports bar, I gave it a shot. And believe me, it's the real deal. I spent the entire next day doing all my favorite things with my family, including a long hike on our favorite trail. I kept hearing about pre-alcohol, and I wondered what it was actually like. But now that I've tried it, I believe the hype. And with their GMO technology, they will release different products that help address toxic byproducts of modern living in the gut. Go to zbiotics.com/legalaf to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LegalAF at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/legalaf and use the code legalaf at checkout for 15% off. And we are back. Great sponsors doing a great job at promoting pro-democracy channels like Legal AF and Midas Touch Network. Welcome back. And now we got to talk about Rudy Giuliani. When that story broke, we had kind of our internal chain here on Midas Touch. And Karen, you jumped in and said, oh, I wish I could hit that one. So why don't you kick it off? What happened? Frame it. Tell everybody how Rudy got to this moment in time. Why is it in front of Judge Lyman? And what did he just rule and take Rudy Giuliani to task to try to make Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss at least a little bit whole?
Yeah. So look, Rudy Giuliani has defamed, basically he defamed the 2 election workers in Georgia, making all sorts of horrible accusations about them that were totally debunked, totally unfounded. They testified really powerfully before the Jan 6 committee. They will be extremely powerful witnesses for Jack Smith if that case ever goes to trial. And just talking about how these lies, frankly, ruined their lives. Remember, they said that they were passing, votes from under the pulling out votes from under the table, and that they claim the video showed this, but they were really just, I think, passing a mint from one to the other. One's an election volunteer, the other's an election worker. I mean, our system relies on just regular people like them, and they're a mother-daughter team. And for them to just all of a sudden be scapegoated by Rudy Giuliani, and frankly, to be made poster children for fraud in the election when it was all lies, complete lies. They had death threats, they had to move. I mean, just what they talked about, what had happened to them was horrendous. And they went to, their case went to court. They sued Rudy Giuliani for defamation. And in any civil case, judges require you to exchange discovery and turn information over, and you have to do it. And Giuliani just kept refused to turn over any information about his net worth, about what he had, what he didn't have, just all the things that you have to turn over in a court process. And he was warned over and over and over and over again. And the judge ultimately just said, look, I'm basically ruling against you and for the plaintiffs just as a sanction, which, is for those of us who practice criminal law, that's just such a surprise that you can even do that, because you can't do that in a criminal case. In a criminal case, you actually it has to be on the merits. So it was just very surprising that you could do that, but it was great to see that somebody can't just absolutely avoid accountability. And so there was a finding, and they ultimately got, I think, $148 million. So most of it was punitive damages. Some of it were compensatory damages. I think they got $2 million in legal fees. I think it was like $150 million, something like that. And then Rudy Giuliani tried to declare bankruptcy in order to avoid having to pay Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman. And essentially what happened is now they are in court, and they are in court where the judge is distributing these assets to them and is giving them pretty much everything except, I think there's four World Series Yankee rings that he claims he gave to his son. And so they're still quibbling over that, as well as the fact that he has a home in Palm Beach, and in Florida, you're not allowed to, you can't make someone give up their home in this process, right? But you can take everything else. And they're pretty much taking everything else. Furniture, this 1980 Mercedes that was once owned by Lauren Bacall, his TV. I mean, he has a signed Joe DiMaggio jersey. He had all these watches, one given to him by his grandfather, by European presidents. I mean, it was really seemed really weird that, A, he had all the stuff, and B, that it can just be handed over. And they're going to put his penthouse apartment in New York in receivership, and the receiver will sell it, and they'll be given, as you said, $10 million of their of his $10.5 million estate, and it'll go, they'll still be owed a lot more money, but they're going to get everything he has. And it's a huge punishment and deterrent to others who try to get away with this. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The receiver is actually Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. Rather than hire a receiver, the judge is forcing, I love the poetic justice of this. Rudy Giuliani's lawyers have to turn over the keys effectively to the co-op in New York, which is his apartment in the Upper East Side, directly to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss for them to do with it what they will, as opposed to waste. This was the beauty of Judge Lyman. Rather than wasting money that would only come out of Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss's ability to be made whole. Because what happens, and I don't know how much you've been involved with this in your career, your legal career, but I've done receivership and I've been involved with receiverships and trustees being appointed in the liquidation of businesses and companies and hearings about that. And you know who makes a lot of the money and sucks the estate dry are other professionals. By the time the lawyers, the accountants hired by the lawyer, the trustees hiring and receiver hiring their own lawyers and accountants or maybe other experts, it all comes out of that pot of money. It's not coming out of somewhere else. So Judge Lyman didn't want that. And he even denied, at one point, Rudy said, can we have a magistrate judge make some decisions if there's no, there's no magistrate judge. Judge Lyman said, I make all the decisions. The order is 7 days. And I'm warning you now, you're going to turn over that Palm Beach County condo near Mar-a-Lago, which is worth maybe $3 million. If I find that you lied about your having homestead protection. You can only get homestead protection in Florida is if you're a legitimate resident of Florida. And I'm not sure he qualifies as a legitimate resident of Florida to put a ring around his assets, particularly his home there. And the judge says, don't do anything with it right now. You've got an order now not to dissipate assets and preserve the assets, not waste the assets. And I'm going to have a hearing at the end of the month about it. And if I find that you are not properly homestead protected in Florida because you weren't a resident of Florida for this item, and it looks like you spent a lot of time in New York, and I haven't prejudged it yet, you're going to be turning over the Palm Beach condo to them as well. And that's where the real value in the estate is. The watches are interesting, and trying to hold on to the grandfather's watch was interesting to watch, no pun intended. But the real bulk of the money is like $10 million. That's the two pieces of real estate. And they're going to have one of them in 6 days, and they're going to have the other one, I think, soon after that, because I don't think he can prove that he was a Florida resident. And I think he lied somewhere else, too.
So can they make him homeless? Like, can you really take everything so that you can't? That's unbelievable to me.
Yeah, you can't take your stove. You can. Yeah. I mean, New York doesn't have a homestead protection law like that. But the one that we didn't really talk about is one of my favorites, which is that he's been ordered to turn over and to give the claim to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss of the alleged $2 million that he's owed by Donald Trump for attorney's fees for the 2020 and 2021 work, the work that had him lose his 2 law licenses and get indicted in several places. That he says he and the judge reminded him, you were under oath at a creditors meeting with the trustee in which you swore under oath that you were owed money, attorney's fees. We've seen it reported as $2 million from the Trump campaign. Okay. That claim, which is an accounts receivable, is now moving over to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. And then the judge did one other thing. He said, I find it to be the height of irony that you've asked me to delay the turnover of that claim because you're claiming it'll create chaos and mayhem and be election interference, considering the thing that you did was arguably election interference that got you to the point where you now owe this judgment. So the answer is no, you're going to turn it over now, not after the election, right now in 6 days. So they're going to be able, so now we're going to have to be able to report, it's going to be great. We're going to be able to report on a demand letter first by Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss to the Trump campaign demanding $2 million turnover. So Donald Trump having to pay that. And if they don't get it, a lawsuit of Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss owning the claim against Donald Trump to get the $2 million. See, they made that decision early on not to sue Donald Trump for defamation. But look at this, Karen. They're going to have the ability to get $2 million running with interest against Donald Trump from Rudy Giuliani.
But why didn't they sue Trump for defamation? Tell me, why didn't they sue Trump?
They didn't want to get caught up in the immunity problem.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because presidential immunity in the civil context did exist. And the statements he made, it would be a question of whether but he was a candidate at the time. I don't know, the whole thing.
No, he was a
Yes,
president.
he was president and candidate. Yes, but he repeated it later. He repeated some.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I think they had the benefit. These are good lawyers at Wilkie Farr and Gallagher and some other places. I know.
I'm more just curious.
No, what I'm saying is they're good lawyers, and they had the opportunity to watch what happened to E. Jean Carroll and the fight there. Ultimately, Robbie Kaplan, on behalf of E. Jean Carroll, for that defamation case, was able to prevail. But I think they were like, you know what? Well, let's just get Rudy and but not just Rudy. People forget that they had claims against and settled with Newsmax and with a couple of other. So this is not the first check that they're getting. They settled with some other. They just settled like a week or two ago with another alt-right wing news organization that docks them. Not One Nation, one something settled with them. I think Newsmax settled with them. Another one just. So there's been a bunch of people that have had to settle with Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss and Penn. It will never, thank you, own. Thank you, Salty. You can see I was struggling there. They will never be made whole for the psychological damage that was done to them and their family, where they had to leave their home under violent. Could you imagine what violent rhetoric was rained down upon them by MAGA to this day? And you know what? All they wanted to do was do their civic duty and work as election workers and count votes. And they can't ever do that ever again.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
So that's where we're at. You know what else is unbelievable? We've reached the end of our Legal AF midweek edition. We can't do it without our audience, and where there's so much love that we share with our audience, and we thank them for helping us to build Legal AF into what it is today. I mean, 50 million people a month know the answer to the question, where should I go for legal and political analysis and commentary that's going to tell me the truth and make me feel better, and at least give me the knowledge I need. And the answer to that is Legal AF, both here on the Midas Touch Network, on this particular podcast, and on the new Legal AF channel on YouTube, where frankly, all Legal AF things you can get. I mean, they still, of course, on Midas Touch, but you can, if you're looking to shop everything Legal AF, it's sort of all sitting there in one place, which is why we invite you to go over there and help us build that second pro-democracy channel. Saturday, I'll be on with Ben Mycelis, picking up for where we left off today. And then, of course, right back at it with Karen Friedman Agnifilo on next Wednesday. And you help us in all the ways that we've talked about. Of course, the new Legal AF channel. Mistrial is going to be on tomorrow. You have your topic set for tomorrow, Karen. You want to sell that a little bit?
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about what we didn't get a chance to talk about here, which is Elon Musk and and the Justice Department warning him that, we've been talking about it a lot, and I've been doing a bunch of hot takes on it just to sound the alarm that I thought he is breaking the law. Well, I was happy to see the Justice Department sent him a letter saying, hey, paying people for votes and registering, you're crossing a line. So we're going to talk about that and a few other things that you're just going to have to tune in to watch. And we're going to talk about, there's a lot going on, obviously. And I mean, we're still kind of, as you said, there's so much to talk about that you have to curate it for this, right? I mean, are we going to talk about that John Kelly, that was the White House's longest serving chief of staff, said he believes that Donald Trump is a fascist, and frankly used to brag about being like Adolf Hitler. We could talk about that. We could talk about, there's so much we could talk about. We're still talking about which. You're still
curating is what you're trying to say.
Well, of course, but I'm just, these are the types of things that we will talk about. All right. Tomorrow, but those are just two of the types of things that you'll hear us talk about. I mean, look, Kathleen Rice brings a really unique perspective, because not only was she an elected prosecutor in Long Island, New York, for years, she was also a federal prosecutor, but she's also a member of Congress, and she was there on January 6th. So she is just someone who's has this unique perspective, like Adam Kinzinger, like other members of Congress that have come out and really talked about what it's like and what it was like serving as a member of Congress under Donald Trump. And as you said, and the three of us were long-term public servants and prosecutors as well. So I look forward to batting these issues around with my friends and colleagues, Danya Perry and Kathleen Rice, tomorrow.
Great.
And Popok, we love when you come on the show. So
I'll make semi-regular appearances. Mistrial on Thursdays, Legal AF Wednesdays and Saturdays, only on the Midas Touch Network. Shout out to the Midas Mighty and the Legal AFers.